angel investor that joined the network. It's a really great achievement. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How many of them now?
We have 55 angels at the moment.
55. Yeah, it's, yeah. No wonder why you say it's one of the biggest in the region. No doubt. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really excited about that.
Yes, great. I think we are about to start sharply in the next 1 minute. All right. Yeah. Okay, the people is coming. The number go up very fast.
Good.
30 now. Hello, guys. It's our honor today to have Maaike Doyer from Epic Angels agree to join us today. And my name is Ting. As you know, I'm the founders of Wizin. And these section within the Vietnam venture capital community, and the section is included in the Adventure to the Venture series. We have done this for these 2 years, and we in this year we focus on angel investing. And this section, we are honored to have Maaike. And previously, we have seen that now we have many angels from over the world to talk about their story and also try to share about their approach in terms of angel investing. We got Irish angels. We got American angels. We got so many. But I think it's the first time we got woman-led, woman-focused angel investor, and it's a great approach. And I do think that is a very fruitful conversation ahead. Hope you guys enjoy this, and please welcome Maaike. Pass on to you, Maaike.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about that. Indeed, to speak about the topic of angel investing. That's a topic very, very, very close to my heart, as many other topics as well. And today, indeed, I loved how you framed it, angel investing from Silicon Valley to the Asia Pacific, because indeed, that's all going to be part of my story. So this is me. And indeed, the first question is always what people ask me, like, how do I pronounce your name? This is Maaike. That is the easiest to remember, I would say. And the reason why this name is so hard to pronounce is because I'm from this country, the Netherlands, in Europe. That's where I'm originally born. And while I continue my story, I actually already have a question for everyone here on the call. Do you know any Dutch companies? I always ask it as a trick question. Don't Google, of course. Yeah, I'm just very curious, like what are the names of the companies that you can come up with? Because that is where I'm from, that is where I'm born, and that's also why my name is so very, very hard to pronounce. Although I always struggle with a lot of the Vietnamese names, I have to say. But please go ahead and type it in the chat if you know any Dutch company. I still don't see any. Does it mean that no one knows any Dutch company? Uh-oh. I need to do some promotion for the Netherlands here. Maybe we need to do a session on the Netherlands first. because I can see it's not anyone, because maybe someone can think of a famous beer, a beer that is in a green bottle. Anyone?
Heineken.
Heineken, yes,
Heineken?
That is a Dutch company.
So
I mean, that's always the one that everyone in the whole world knows, of course. And I think Shell, everyone knows Shell, everyone knows Philips, Unilever. I think that's another thing that we use basically daily. Although it's a bit of an argument, is Unilever from the UK or from the Netherlands? We, of course, say it's from the Netherlands. Booking.com, finally, we can use that again as well. And now we can travel again. And so as you can see, quite some big names in this tiny little country where I'm from. And I started my career very traditional because I'm a true number person. I studied math, always loved numbers. And I started to work for the big accountancy firms back in the day, even Arthur Andersen, but that became Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And I was mainly in M&A, mergers and acquisitions, where I was working But, I felt a little bit of a rebel, and I've been writing so many beautiful reports and plans, but all these reports end up somewhere in a drawer and nothing happens. So that should be done in a different way. So I stepped out of my corporate life, and I started the company Business Models Inc. And with Business Models Inc., we produced the famous book, The Business Model Canvas. And I'm very curious indeed who's on the call here, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in VC, whether you're an interested angel investor, please put that in the chat. I love reading that while I'm talking, to know who exactly is here on the other end. So the Business Model Canvas, especially if you're a startup entrepreneur, I hope you know this. If not yet, make sure you read up on it, because this is a wonderful tool that will help you to build your business. So I was running this company from the Netherlands, but then quickly we realized, we started to expand to other countries, and one of those countries was the United States. And we felt if we're really serious about opening in the United States, one of the executive team members has to move to the US, and I was the lucky one. And so my husband quit his job, and he moved with me to the United States, to San Francisco. So we landed there. I was in the US. I also opened an office in New York, so spent there quite a number of years. And then about 2 years ago, we decided to move to Singapore. So into this region, I actually stepped out of the company Business Models Inc. It was time for a new chapter, because that was already more than 10, 12 years. So, time for a change. And I arrived here in the region, and that is actually when my angel investing journey further continued, to the extent where I even started my own company, Epic Angels. Because that is the heart of this conversation that we're having today. And so what I'm focusing on today is Epic Angels. That's the biggest logo. That's what I'm spending the most time on. And so we are an angel network existing out of female investors only. But the other jobs that I have, I'm also a professor at SMU, the Singapore Management University, where I teach about entrepreneurship. I'm also part of the Founder Institute, where I help entrepreneurs, but also in Vietnam, part of Empower by Zone Startups, where I help entrepreneurs and residents as well. So I love the whole education piece as well. I'm still very curious. Who are you? Because I only see names. I don't see any faces anyway. So please type in the chat. Are you a startup entrepreneur? Are you an investor? Are you in VC? Or are you just very curious to learn more? Please put it in there. I love seeing that. So I hope I can see. Yes. Oh, there's someone who's everything. But that's something. Thank you. That's probably all the options, right? Like, who are you? Because I'd love to see more about that, because then I can tailor my story to that as well a little bit more. So in the meantime, while you're typing that in, let me tell you a little bit more about Epic Angels. And so Epic Angels, it's these two ladies, myself and Hester. We are running that network. And how it all started was when I arrived in Singapore. So I came from Silicon Valley, and when I lived in Silicon Valley, that's where I started my angel journey. Because it's very hard not to invest almost, it's so mainstream. It's like getting a cup of coffee. Everyone, it's just part of what you do. But so then I moved here to Asia, and I was like, I want to continue my journey. I was very interested in the landscape and the startups in the region. So let me continue. But I just could not find a network where I felt good, because the most part of the network was all men, first of all. The other thing that I noticed was it's perceived as something very elite to do angel investing. People think you are at least a billionaire if you do angel investing, because people here invest with amounts like $50,000, $100,000. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money to put in a startup. So I was actually there like, right, I don't feel comfortable with that. And I really think we need to change the game, because I was so used to what I was doing in Silicon Valley. Because let me tell you, my first angel investment that I did was $100 US. That was it. So with only $100, I could already invest in a startup. But here it didn't exist. And so that for me was really the reason to say, hey, let's group together. Let's start Epic Angels and democratize angel investing, as we say. How can we make angel investing accessible for the wider audience? And the audience is a little selected because I picked women only. and why was that? Because, I mean, especially here in Singapore, Singapore has the largest percentage of female CEOs in the world. And also, I mean, I was in Vietnam, when was it, 2 weeks ago? There's so many strong women in the region, but unfortunately, women are less trained and educated in finance. And in general, women are more risk aware, meaning that, you know, can be a little bit more careful. So unfortunately, a lot of the wealth of the women is just parked in a bank account instead of investing. So I felt like, hey, there's an opportunity there. And I really think we need to support women, to give them access to deals, to lower the barrier to enter, because we don't want to put 100K in a deal. I think that's nonsense, right? We can do that with lower amounts, but also build the confidence. Because if you speak with other investors, with peers, you share knowledge, you feel better about making a decision, because it is scary. Angel investing is definitely scary to do. So these days, this is our Epic Angels network. We call them our Epic Investors. This is a network of 55 women that we have today, and still counting. By the end of the year, we want to be with 100 angels. And together, we're really looking at, like, how can we make an impact? Because funny enough, automatically, if you are a female investor network, you tend to invest more in female founders, just like male investors tend to invest more in men. So there's a lot of focus on female founders and why they're not getting the funding that they are receiving. But I think the real issue is there are not enough female investors. And so that's why we started Epic Angels and really got in there. So quickly going through the chats, there's some entrepreneurs, some startups, someone interested in the angel investor, and so startups Vietnam here, yay, really good, really good. So I see more people here, because what it is, right? The reason why I'm asking is whether you are a startup or whether you are interested to become an investor, you have a different perspective. You look at things a little different. And so please go ahead. As you know, I like to be interactive and not just talk to a screen. And so if you have any specific questions, throw them in there and I can quickly answer them. So let me take you to a few things. Like, why do people want to become angel investor? And this was a survey that we've done. And of course, the main reason is financial return. Luckily, right, as it should be. It's not charity doing angel investing. Although yesterday I spoke with an angel and she said, I just call it a very expensive hobby. Or another sentence that I often use, doing angel investment is almost like doing an MBA. You learn so much from every conversation that you have with the startups about the industry, all the issues that are out there. So, you know, there is more, but the financial return, of course, needs to be number one. But it's also like, how can I be part of a company that makes an impact? Because that is what we do care about. And how can we support founders with expertise? And you really see that it is a thriving community, our angel network, that really wants to help the founders, both female and male founders, by the way. And then there is angel investor versus VC. And also for the startups out there, like, how are they different? And what is the difference between an angel investor versus a VC? Well, if you look into the landscape and the startup life cycle, when you start as a startup, you always get your first funding from the friends, families, and fools, as we like to call it. And that's your first round. But then once you're through that, once you get a little bit of traction and you have your first version of your product out, you get to your seed rounds. And after that, you get into Series A. Series A and above, that is typically where the VCs play a role. So where do angel investors play a role? Right there at that seed stage, because it's still a little bit too small for the venture capital world to step in, but it's already enough traction that you need a bit more money than just your family, friends, and fools, depending on how much money that your friends have. But you probably need a little bit more. You want to expand. So that's when you get into the seed stage. So that's where we typically invest. And it's a very risky phase to be in that early stage. And that's why angel investing as such is very risky. And for those of you who consider becoming an angel investor, it's high risk, can also be high reward, but it's also high risk. And that's just something I have to say. I always advise, do not put more than 5%, max 10% of all your financial assets in angel investing. Everything else, make sure you have a bit more stable investments, although the stock exchange isn't also stable anymore these days, but at least, so be sure of that. Don't put all your money in angel investing. That is not very smart. 5%, max 10% of your financial assets that you should put in there. Because also if you look at like, why do startups fail? I thought this was a very interesting chart, and that was actually published the other day. Well, they run out of cash is number one. And that is exactly, if you look at the seed stage, it's called the valley of death. And so you got a little money, you got some traction, but you don't have enough traction to already get some profits, to live off your product profits. And you're also not yet big enough that you attract the large VCs that want to invest in you. And that's that valley of death. And that's a very rough period to get through. And that's also why this is the number one reason why startups fail, is because they ran out of money and they were not timely enough to secure the next round already. And so that is a very tricky thing, of course, to do so. And so and that's also when you look at if you're a startup and you want to get funding, because I know it's so hard to get funding these days. I'm always asking this to a startup, like, do you have any clue how many pitch decks a VC receives every week? I would love to see some numbers here in the chat. How many pitch decks do VCs receive every week? Roughly. What do you think? Every week? 50, 100? No, that's not far off. I mean, the big profile funds, like Sequoia and so on, they easily get like 150, 200 pitches per week. And so that's quite a lot. But even the mainstream VC fund is probably between 40 and 100. So I think you were actually pretty spot on here in your numbers. And so that was very good. If you look at us at Epic Angels, I think we go about 50 pitches every month. And so a little over 10 a week, because we're still a small angel fund that we're going through. Do you also know how much time someone spends on reading your email and going through your pitch deck? Any idea here? How many minutes do they spend? 30 seconds? Ha! You're a fast reader. Between 5 minutes, 1 minute. Yeah, they say that it's between 2 and 3.5 minutes on average. That is the average. And I must say it's true. I mean, also, if I need to quickly browse, you look for some spark in there. And if you don't find the spark in these 2-3 minutes, you move on to the next one, which makes it really hard to stand out. And as part of Epic Angels as well, I mean, that is my job right now. I need to scout all these startups and really try to find that one startup that stands out, that is a little different than the others, where I feel like, yes, this is going to be super attractive to the founders, to our angels, because out of those 50 startups pitches that I receive every month, about 5 of them I send to the angels. And then one of those 5 we invested. Those are roughly the numbers. Right? So just to give you a bit of a comparison how it works. And so that is a super good thing to do. And it's also like, how can you stand out? Well, it's so interesting because, as you said as well, like, the first female investment group, I get messages like this. Dear sir, please review our pitch deck. And this, unfortunately, is not an exception. I get this all the time. And I'm like, oh, no, what are you doing, right? That's not very smart. You didn't really pay any attention here. So I did not reach out to him, as you can imagine. I did actually send him a message back like, check out who you're sending your email to before sending an email. But that's definitely was very, very bad. Maybe one other thing as well that is interesting, because we have both startups and investors here in the room. And like, how do you evaluate a startup? What are you looking at when you do that? And these are kind of the things that we're looking for. First of all, for us, it's team. That is the most important element that we see. One way of saying that is we always say we need a founder that refuses to die, that chooses agility over ego. That is super, super important for us. So who is that team? What is the traction that they have? But sometimes, of course, they're early stage. So that's why it's traction/action. Sometimes you don't have that much traction yet, but I can see you spend time outside of your laptop, because sometimes I see startup entrepreneurs so in love with their products, and they're always, just on their product, and they forget to get out of the building and actually interact with their customers. So that is a super important element that we see. Some competitive advantage. That is a hard one to prove, but definitely like, hey, why are you different? I mean, just half an hour ago, we were going through a couple of pitch decks that we received, and there was one in the wellness, mental well-being space. I'm like, yeah, I see a mental well-being startup every other day almost at the moment. So what makes this startup unique? What makes it stand out? That is a very important one. And how easy or how difficult will it be to actually scale? That's sort of the other part that we see. Here I see, Marian, you're asking a question. What are some ways I can attract angel investors to a female-oriented startup? Any things I can do to sparkle that in the right way? Well, send it to Epic Angels is one thing, because for us, you're just one of the founders. We don't really care that much. We just want to see at least one woman in the core team. That's very important. And to be honest, I don't know if it's different in your approach as a female-oriented startup, or maybe I'm reading female-oriented the wrong way. Does that mean you also have a product towards women? That might be the case. Yes. Okay. So that is hard. We were recently speaking with a company in Malaysia that has period products, which is of course 100% female-oriented product, which for our group of angels was a super good conversation. And for us, it was not any different than any of the other conversations that we had. But I really can't imagine that if you're having a conversation like that with men only, if that's rough, that is super tough, because it's just a topic that they cannot relate to. And vice versa, by the way, it would be the same. If we would look at prostate cancer, for example, right? I mean, that is a topic where I have no affinity with as a woman. So I think you will always keep that. And again, that's why I really want to fight for getting more women in the VC space, female investors, because that gives you, Marianne, an equal opportunity to actually pitch your startup. And I think that that's important. Luckily, there are more and more women, not always in the decision-making roles. But if I were you, figure out who are the specific VCs in this area that maybe are in direct to consumer. Don't know if you're direct to consumer, but if you're direct to consumer, who are the VCs in the direct to consumer space? There must be at least one woman working there, even if it's just a junior analyst. That's okay. Start there. Start with that woman. Find her. She is out there, and then work your way up through her. She will help you. And if she really believes in that idea, then she will help explaining to the guys, like, guys, this really is an issue. You should pay attention here. So I really would go for that angle. Don't go for the partner. If that's a man, it's probably going to be much harder. And so that would be my immediate advice. Because I mean, this was my next slide, and I think that's really related to what you said. Because what investors do, we listen to our hearts, right? We really, it's a lot of ratio in looking at financials, but it's also a lot of passion. We need to be excited about the product. We need to believe in the team. And you just need to have that feeling for it. And that's hard if it is a topic that you can't relate to. You don't have any empathy for the problem that you're trying to solve. Even though you can see that 50% of the population is female, you still can't bring that empathy in there. And that makes it really hard to invest. And again, we can try to convince these men they need to invest in things like this, but I think it's easier to work the other way around, get more female investors that actually want to go for that, because they really recognize that. And so that's a few things that I wanted to share about sort of like, how do we look at that? I know I'm running out of time. I did have one more part, short part about like, what's the difference between investing in Silicon Valley and Asia Pacific? Would you like me to still go through that?
Yes, please. I think it's so attractive now. So just go on. Yeah, share more, please.
I keep on talking then because this is interesting. I'm moving from the United States to this region. And right now, by the way, as Epic Angels, we only invest in startups in this region. I do not invest in Europe, do not invest in Asia. I mean, I have, in US, I do have some investments there that I already had. But as Epic Angels, we only invest here in the APAC region. Why is that? Well, Europe, I think they are retired already. They're just snoozing. And so there's not a lot of excitement things happening there. Then you have the United States. The United States is a country in blinders, right? They only see their own country. They cannot look beyond that. Plus, I mean, if we as a collective invest 50,000, 100,000 in a startup in Asia, you can actually do something with $100,000. If I invest $100,000 in the US, it's gone in a month, right? There's nothing left. And so I think valuations are a little ridiculous there. So that is why we have the focus. But let's take a look at some of the numbers. This was from previous year. Globally, it's 2021, 621 billion was invested in startups. What is the amount, do you think, that the US invested out of the 621? What's done by US? Any idea? 2/3, 300? I like your numbers. Frederick, spot on, 311. And so indeed, about half was done by the US. And as a comparison, 1/3 of the whole US is Silicon Valley. This tiny little part of the United States, 1/3 of all the VC capital coming from there. So what about Asia? What's been the number for Asia last year? 250, 10%, so 60. Asia, 176. So roughly half, right, of what the US was doing. So this, of course, also explains why there's so much happening in the United States around startups, because there is so much capital, even though China, because out of the 176, the majority is China, of course, what's being invested. So, I mean, I should look up the exact number for Southeast Asia, but that's going to be a fraction of that, unfortunately. As you see, Europe is far behind, because in Europe, there is a lot of money, but they're not really into the whole VC world. They have a long way to go. And so if we go back into like, what are those differences? So of course, there is more money, but what I saw in Asia is, so it is perceived, the whole investing world, as a little bit more elite. It is a bit more exclusive. I mean, and that's what we're trying to break through, of course, to make it more accessible. These ticket sizes that are higher, like in the US, I could invest with $100. Here they ask 25,000, 50,000. Not at Epic Angels, we invest with much lower amounts. But what you see on average here is $25,000, $50,000, which also has to do with regulation. For example, in Singapore, if you have more than 50 shareholders on your cap table, you become a public company. Well, no one wants to become a public company, so you really want to reduce the number of shareholders on your cap table. The market is really fragmented in Asia. Every country is complete different. If something works in Vietnam, it doesn't say it will work in Indonesia or in Thailand or anything. Different languages, different culture, there's a lot of barriers. Where in the US, it's all one big market. So that makes it much easier that once you have something good, you can scale much faster in the United States compared to Asia. On the other hand, what's a big plus? It's the highest growth market. If you look between now and 2030, you're looking at all the expectations, Asia is where it's going to be. And I really, really believe in that. What I also like about that is that a lot of the startups copy successful models from the United States. And that's okay, because the US is so blinded and only looking at themselves. They won't go to Asia. Plus, they won't understand the cultural differences. So you do have a really good shot to make it happen in this region. And so I think that that's a massive opportunity. One of the other big differences that I see is the risk appetite. In general, Asia is more risk averse. People want to know for sure, where US, it's go big or go home. They really know how to do that and how to play that game. I learned so much when I was living there about that. I thought I understood what it meant, but you only know when you live there, like, oh, it is indeed go big or go home. So that is amazing in that region. And so I think that that's definitely something that we can still learn in this region, to be a little less risk averse, but just go for that. China market, Nam, thank you for asking that question. I must say the China market is very hard for me to grasp. I don't speak Chinese, so I can't read the news. We are, as Epic Angels, we just closed this week actually one investment that is related to a semi-Chinese startup. And they are registered in Singapore because it makes it, legally we'll get into some issues otherwise if we invest in China. But they help Chinese companies to grow outside of China. So I think that that's a massive market, of course, because China is very different. Also, they have the same as the US. They look a lot inside, but at the same time, they're also trying to conquer the world without anyone noticing it. And so they're going really big on that front as well. But unfortunately, I don't know that much yet about China. I always say to my husband, I want to move to China because I want to learn from it. He doesn't want to move. But I'm really intrigued by the market. But unfortunately, I just don't know enough yet. Still need to learn a lot more about that. Yeah, so that was a lot, right? That was definitely more than 15 minutes. Sorry about that. But I hope there was some interesting elements in there.
Yeah, sure, Maaike. I think we have learned very much from the presentation, and it's not only a presentation. I believe that it's more insight from the time that you work, and it's full of experience. I think come back to some the impact and also the appearance of a Dutch company in Vietnam. I think people here growing up with the understanding of Dutch lady, the company,
condensed milk.
Yeah, they just don't remember it, immediately. But I think Dutch company has been around for quite several years, and I think it's add value to the ecosystem. And I got one question here. I think it's kind of interesting. Can you explain the logo of Epic Angels? It looks interesting.
Yeah, it's a funny logo. I mean, you could flip it upside down, right? If we would do it like this, you see EA in here as well, and so it's so that was actually the how we played around with it, with the EA, but we didn't want to be EA, and we really wanted to be full Epic Angels. And yeah, and it almost looks like the feminine sign as well. Yeah, so it is definitely, we had so many logos.
Yeah,
this was the one that grabbed our attention. Yeah.
It's a kind of rebel things that you have done. It's kind of rebel.
Yes.
Turn it around. I got some question about the organizing of the Angel Network, because we already know that I think that the key things that we need to maintain in a network is like the commitment it's like people eager at the very beginning, but it's uneasy for them because most of them got something else to do, right? So do you face any issue in terms of maintain the commitment, and is there anything that happened in terms of the commitment of the team? Anything?
Yeah, no, so that's a good question, because what you see is angel investing is typically never the number one priority for an investor. I mean, for me, it is my priority every day, running Epic Angels and doing that investment but all of our angels, I mean, if you have money left to invest, it means you have a pretty serious job. You have to, otherwise you don't have that money to spend on a startup. So they have their job to manage. Typically, they have a family to manage. They have a social life to manage. And oh yeah, there's also my investment portfolio. So that comes sort of end of the line. So what you see is with the attention, it comes and goes in waves. There is always, that's why I really want to go through like a large network. So you always have a bit of a constant base, because I do know there are other priorities. And what you see is that because our angels, what they love is being in touch with the founder. So not just reading a pitch deck or me telling them like, hey, this is a good investment. They really want to be in touch with the founder. So we have calls with the founders. All our angels are always invited. And the thing is that when you you cannot join a call, you still want to listen to it. So we record a podcast. It's a private podcast, only available for the angels, so they can listen to it. So we give them the opportunity. But there are also some women that tell us like, sorry, but the next few months, right, I barely have time to spend on this. And so that's okay. We have a special, what we call fast track lane. And so you can skip the noise and the bonding. We'll just like, hey, now you need to pay attention. You can go in yes or no. And so we do know how to manage that. And funny enough, sometimes they are really like, okay, don't count me in. And after a few months, they're like, here I am again, right? Like now I want to go deeper. So, and that's okay. I think you need to respect that and see it as a fact. We're not trying to get constant attention from everyone, because that's just not feasible.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a thing that we need to face, and we need to tackle with it along the time of the fund. And one more question about for example, for VC fund, we got management fee, we got carry, of course, to maintain the incentive of the GP, and also try to get enough money to run the operation daily. About Epic Angels, I think a kind of management fee or something related, something equivalent is something that you guys would charge. Is that right?
No, because we do not charge a management fee, because we are not a fund. Indeed, that's the big difference between an angel network and a fund. And with a fund, you just say, here's $25,000, dear fund manager, invested on my behalf. It's more a passive approach. And then usually you see management fee taking place. We don't do that. Every angel decides for every deal whether they want to join, yes or no. And what happens is we ask for membership fee, but that's only $500 on the annual basis. So that's not a lot. That's just to keep the lights on, I would say. And indeed, and every time we set up an SPV, because you need to set up an SPV, of course, to collect all the different payments from everyone, there is some administration cost involved. And we divide the actual cost pro rata over the angels. So it's not cost for us, right? It's just cost for those who are investing at that moment. But this is a one-off when we sign on. And at the end, indeed, there's a carry. So what does an SPV mean? It's a special purpose vehicle. So typically what happens, because since we really want to lower the barrier for people to invest, it means we allow people to enter with $5,000, for example. And but as a startup, you don't want investors with only $5,000 on your cap table. You go bananas. And so what we do is we say to all our angels, you know what, let's group together. Let's pool all our money together. So if I have 20 angels that do 5,000 each, I have $100,000. That is interesting for a startup. That is what you want on your cap table. But legally, I need to wrap all that money together. And that's what's called an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. It's a very simple structure, and I really nailed it down to get the absolute cheapest structure that there is. And so it's super, super easy to get it done, and the costs are really only a fraction. And it's only a tiny amount, but you have to pay, unfortunately, some legal fees to get that done. So that's the SPV. Also, Yen, you're also asking about the investment preference of the Epic Angel Network. And so what do we invest in? And so our investment thesis, as it's nicely called, it's you have to be based in APAC, although primarily we see Southeast Asia. Tech at the core, and for us that means scalability. Because we want to see something that is scalable across all industries. So industry doesn't matter. And there needs to be female leadership. It can be male founder, that is okay. But we need to see female leadership. Like 2 days ago, I got a team it was from Pakistan, and they had 7 executive team members, but they were all men. And I was like, sorry, no, that's just, get at least one woman on your team that is in a decision-making position. And that is very important to us. So I hope I answered your question with this.
I think it's a great answer, and at least for Hing, or she can reverse to ask more. And but can we explore more in terms of the kind of industry that you guys more, like I know that is own kind of industry, but is there anything specific? Yeah, this slide may work.
Yes, so these are the investments that we made. I think in general, we're big on fintech, we're big on edtech. And that seems to be because of the angels that we have, but that's growing luckily, so that's changing as well. So that's good to see. And it's always for us a struggle to find like what's going to be the industry that our angels really, really like. For example, anything related to sustainability scores really, really well in general. And so that is definitely one. Although looking at this, I'm like, yeah, there's not that many actually on there that are related to sustainability, but that usually leads to a very good conversation as well. So Roga is healthcare, around fintech, Jacket is edtech, Bunch is also more edtech. What you see there as well, Advantage Club HR, and so you see different kind of industries out there. So those are the ones that we did.
Yes, great. I think it's give the audiences more ideas about what kind of things that you guys tend to like. And how about geography? We see that APAC is a huge area. We see Southeast Asia, but is that look at the portfolio here. What is the dominant countries?
We have invested in the Philippines, and Venice, Vietnam. Relay Club is the China one. Credit Link is Singapore. Roga is Bangladesh. Bunch is actually Europe, but also addressing the market here. Aran is Pakistan. Jacket is Singapore. Thoughtful is Singapore. Stack and Advantage Club is India. And so you see it's all over the place in terms of geography. We do have the promise that before the end of the year, we're going to make a Vietnam investment. Because we're gonna do that Vietnam investment with a minimum of 5 Vietnamese angels and 5 non-Vietnamese angels. So that's the promise that we made, and together with Swiss EP and Zone Startups. We're like, yeah, that's the promise. We have about 4 or 5 startups on our shortlist right now. I believe one of them actually is in this call as well. So that's interesting. She might not even know she's on that list. Maybe she understands now. But we're looking, of course, for more. We are going to make September and October. We're using to scout that specific Vietnamese startup. So if you are a startup and want to be considered, please send your information to our website. I think that's the most. Let me actually put that in here. Epic Angel Network. On our website, there is a specific section, pitch your startup. That's the easiest way to submit your pitch. And then you can just say in there that you heard about, that you were here in this call. That always helps, of course. And so we're September, October, we're looking for more startups. We're also gathering Vietnamese angels. So also, if you're an angel investor, you can also go to the same website. There is the section that's called Join Us. And if you want to join that Vietnamese investment, we have a specific track for that as well. So because we really want to make that happen. Everyone is super excited about what's going on in Vietnam.
Yes, great. And again, guys, it's great to hop on the website and send emails to Maaike. Just don't say hello, sir, and at least, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Come back to the Android network. We have seen that many Android network in the world, along the time when they develop, they turn out to recognize what kind of interest that they got among the angels and what kind of geography they try to cover, and they decide to create the chapter. The subject or any chapter that run by the same organization, same mechanism, but in different geography or focus on different industry. Do you think of the chapter approach?
Yes. Short answer. Yeah, I mean, as right now we're still focused on APAC because I think we're a little too heavy in Singapore almost, and so we really want to make sure we expand in the region. So Vietnam is one of the focus countries at the moment where we're really trying to see, let's get a good group of Vietnamese female angels together, and then automatically you will see a chapter kind of approach there as well, because you will have quarterly drinks that are local, so that everyone can actually meet with each other as well. I think in general in APAC region everyone is interested in all the countries, so I think we don't need a separate chapter for that. I think it's more for the in-person part, because it is important to see each other as well, and not only have a virtual community, but also an in-person community. So that's where I see the chapters play a role. I also feel the next region that's high on my list would be the Latin area, Latin America, South America region, mid and South American region. I think there's a lot of similarities to the APAC region. I actually have a few investments already running there myself. I don't speak Spanish yet. I think I need to work on that first. But that's definitely a region where we keep our eyes on right now. Yeah, because Europe and US, there is so much happening already. Not so much with female-only investment networks, but again, I'm less interested to invest in the US or in Europe. And I feel if you set up a chapter there, you also need to invest in the local startups. I think that's very important.
Yeah. It seems like some emerging markets seem to provide the blue ocean for some of our activities. And again, guys, if you have any question, please put it in the chat box. And if you're eager to interact face to face, just turn on the camera. We hope to see your face, not only Maaike and I with the laptops. Okay, I see.
We have one question, about whether the Silicon Valley angels invest in startups overseas. Angels, barely, I would say. I know it from when I was living there. There is so much happening in the US and definitely in the Silicon Valley region. It's really hard to understand the culture. Like the other day as well was a startup in healthcare in Thailand, and we were looking at their website and I got dizzy just looking at the website. It was like all over the place. But I know that that's the local culture. I know now because I live here. Because in the United States, that website would never ever work. So if I am a US investor and I'm not really exposed to what's happening in the region, I just simply will not understand. And I will not understand the value, which means I will not invest. So it's really, really, really hard for that to happen. I think where you could get traction is when you feel you want to expand into the United States. I mean, I've done that myself, right? I came from Europe, expanded my company into the US. It's rough to do that, by the way, but it's possible. And I think that could be a moment where you can get funding from US angels. But that means you need to live there, because they will not fund you if you want to run the US side of the business from Vietnam or wherever else in APAC. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think in this question and this approach, I do believe that there's a kind of mixture that we can make. The founders can live in the US, but you can run a team in places like Vietnam to explore the low cost workforce here, and you can create something and you can raise fund, like the case of, for example, Elsa Speak from Vũ is a kind of things that happen, or only left the robotic company is run like that. Is can see like the arbitrage advantage if you can manage to do that. It seems to be a kind of a recommendation maybe. And again, guys, if you have any more questions, please put it in the chat box. And again, Maaike, I think if you focus on Vietnam, is a very good thing for the country, and we many people here, we hope to join hand with you to have you on the journey here in Vietnam. I think it's a lot of things we can do together.
Absolutely, I would love to see that, because we set a minimum of one Vietnamese startup, but maybe we get so many interesting one that we invest in more, of course. That's then one is just a minimum, not the maximum. And indeed, I do hope that we can do that together with some Vietnamese female angels. I think that's the other very important point for us. Come
back to the process that you have show, like we got 3F, the friends, family, and through and then again in the beginning we got like angel investing, and then after like I think 12 months or 18 months we need to reach to the next stage of the VC investing. And what kind of value you think Epic Angel can put in for in the startup non-financial that can lead them to that milestone, to the VC route?
Good points. I think there are two things. One is, as Epic Angels, we have built quite a large network already with a lot of VCs and accelerator programs in the region, because that's what I love about this industry, especially at the seed round. There is not a lot of competition yet, and everyone really wants to get as much funding for that startup as they can. So you share a lot of deals with each other. So that also means, like even in our network of angels, a few of the women in our network are VCs, and they're in there for two reasons. One is, of course, they want to do their own angel investments, but also it's scouting for that Series A. Like, okay, good. If the Epic Angels are already investing in them, I keep my eyes on them, I can follow them. So I know when they're ready for Series A, I can invest from the VC perspective. So I think that is one part. We have those relationships. So that's a great one. Of course, we can do introductions for you there. The other part is our angels, they're just badass women that have super senior positions in many large corporates. So they have a network. They can help you with introductions if you're in the B2B space or whatever not. They can mentor you. They can become your board member if you want to. And so because our angels, actually, all of them love doing that mentoring, and our strategic advisor or board member or whatever it is that is needed. They all really love doing that. And I think it helps to get a female perspective with a great network behind them as well.
Great. I think the add value things is a very great function of the Android network, and sometimes they do it better than the VC. We just got just a few people, and
it's more intrinsic, right? I mean, if you look at the difference between a VC and an angel network, as an angel, you're putting in your own money. As a VC, you're putting in other people's money. So there is a difference in motivation and the passion that is connected with that. I mean, I don't want to disregard, but in general, with as a VC, you're going to get your salary no matter what, right? As an angel, it's completely different. It's a passion project. You do it outside. You're not getting any salary. Hopefully you're going to get some financial return, yes, but it's a different dynamic, I would say, and there's a bit more passion involved. So these angels can help. Yeah.
Sure. I think yeah, there's a lot of differences between the two, and return to the key function of the investing. We understand that we need to have a financial return. What kind of returns that you expect, and also you communicate between the angel? What kind of IRR? What kind of financial return that you guys aim to?
That is always it's such a funny question. Sometimes, especially first time angels ask me, so when can I expect my money back and how much more am I gonna get? Yeah. If I would know the answer to that, and I could give you guarantees, then I would be super rich. Because again, as we said, angel investing is a super risky business. And of course, you aim to get like a good return, like 10-20% or so over your overall portfolio. I think those are the stats that are out there. I always say, like, just consider your money gone for at least 10 years. That's the horizon, especially because we're going in so early in the seed stage. It's gone for at least 10 years, or it's gone forever. And then there are about 4 events that can happen to get your money back. The first, well, not to get your money, there are 4 events that can happen for an exit. The first one is the one that unfortunately happens the fastest, and that's bankruptcy. And the startup runs out of money and they die. So all your money is gone. The second one is the M&A exits, typically between 3 and 5 years that it's going to take to get your money back. The IPO is the last one, on average about 10 years. There's one in between, the management buyout, secondary shares that you see, especially secondary shares. I see that happening more and more. It's becoming a bit more of a trend. Especially early on angels, sometimes they're happy, like, okay, good, I get a decent return, not something crazy, but I get a decent return. So that is an option. I mean, right now, we don't have any track record yet. We started 1.5 years ago. The only track record that we have is that all our startups are still alive. So that's already pretty decent, I would say. So.
Yeah. I think it's the question that we as I do enjoy investing myself, so we always asking. But my approach normally is like, when you do enjoy investing, it's not only about the financial return, like you say, we can lose that money, but we can learn on the way. We can learn from the founder. We make a lot of connection, and we do good job, right? We can make impact in the companies, and we got the voice in the company. I think it's a key, some kind of return, maybe non-financial, but something really good. And in case of Epic Angel, I believe that it's the alliance of women-led activities. So I think it is good for the society also. In this case, do you have any comments in terms of running the women-led things? Anything you see in the organization that non-financial, but if excites you?
100%, right? It's that impact that you can make. You can really make a difference by supporting these startups. And it's also about giving back with your knowledge, and see people grow and try to get the most out of it. I mean, and unfortunately, it's a startup world, right? Nine out of the 10 startups will die. That's just a fact. So how can we find those 10% and invest our money in that, right? That's the game. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a very interesting game, and together with some initiative like this, I think it's great. It's really great. We again hope to support you more and the team more. Yeah, and I think it's about time. We may have one more slot for one question, if you guys like.
I think we want to make a picture. I see. Like, I think we want to ask everyone to turn on the camera. I see Pao already, one of our angels, by the way. Hello. I didn't even see your name, and now I see your face. Like, hey, hi. Where are you on our sheet here? You are on here. On the big angels, all the angels that we have.
Okay, guys, please turn on the camera, and we can have the photos. It looks like
so many women, by the way. It's good to see. Huh. Almost all women. So lovely.
Interestingly, we got some men.
Okay. Good. Oh, that's good, because it was not about just women only. It was both perspectives, of course. It's about angel investing.
Totally agree.
One of the female investors I spoke with yesterday, also Vietnamese lady, by the way, she said like, yeah, you know, I invested in this startup that was in Pakistan, and she was the first female investor. So they wanted to do a press release like the first female investor. I was like, I don't want to be known as female investor. I want to be known as badass investor, right? It's not about being a woman or not. I'm an investor just like anyone else. And I think that's the same as, we don't want to speak about female founders. We're all founders, right? And I think that's what the female founders say to us. They're like, with you, I'm not a female founder. I can just be a founder with Epic Angels. And I think that's important, that we're all making sure we get the most out of that.
Yeah.
And I thought in the meantime, maybe everyone would put on their camera. Still not there. People are camera shy these days. It's okay if you didn't comb your hair, don't have all your makeup on. It's fine. You still look beautiful.
All right. I think it's we got most of the people that we can get, right? Maybe next time we can do something offline. People cannot hide their face anymore.
Really lovely. I'm there again end of October.
Oh, let's catch up and do something.
Yeah.
Okay, Tom, can you intro us of this, please?
Okay, so everyone, please give a very big smile on the screen. Now we will do it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks
so much.
Maaike. Thanks everyone. Thanks for the section.